anyone does on the internet is lie, including me. But when I engage in deception, it's for the purpose of making money or scamming the government, and those are time-honored American traditions, right up there with baseball and sticking your aging parent in a retirement home. Modern dating is allegedly a nightmare. At least that's what's been reported back to me from the brave correspondents out in the field. I don't like uttering negative phrases like that, because dating is a game, and I plan on winning. I've said it before, and I will say it again. The biggest reason that people, especially the ones that are constantly talking about their dating woes online, are so frustrated with the dating pool is not because they're being forced to date down or settle. It's actually because most of the people that are available and willing to pursue them are their male or female equivalents. Like, baby, you're actually looking in a mirror. And when I say that these people tend to be on, their level, I don't just mean in terms of looks. I'm taking a holistic approach. I actually factor in other things that matter. Mental and emotional stability, sense of humor, criminal record. Because if you ain't got a mugshot, why don't you go back to Weenie Hut Juniors? You are Canadian in spirit if you've never been arrested. Intellect, family connections, values, I guess. All of these matter. And if you want to know what your SMV rating is, I will give you a free assessment. Hit me up at jamesbrown@AOL.com. This is a general observation. And I know there are exceptions, okay? I do believe that you attract what you are. And a lot of people don't even like who they is. Oh, that was a Chitlin Circuit spoken word bar. This is just gonna be another rant style video, okay? I just like to yap. I despise cope terms. They're frustrating because they exist in order to protect the one uttering the phrase from having to acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. The term medium ugly is one of those terms. I would say, it's more shady than cope. It's not I'm just a nice guy. The nice guy archetype, that's premium tier copium that they be huffing. But I do believe that medium ugly, it falls underneath the general cope umbrella. Now the coper, I don't even know if that makes sense grammatically. The coper in this scenario is the one who is assigning the medium ugly label, not the one who it's being assigned to. The term, it's pretty self-explanatory. It typically is used by girls to describe a guy who is average looking in their eyes. Not full-blown gargoyle per se, but just not really their type. Maybe even a step below.
I like medium ugly guys.
What the f***? You had a
You're
crush
the
on
only
me.
exception.
I'm not sure when the phrase came about or who originated it. It seems to have entered the popular American lexicon in the past 5-ish years. Around 2022 is when my beady little eyes first saw the phrase written out, and then I started hearing people, uttering it out in the field. This phrase is disproportionately used by women to describe men. I'm certain that there's, an expression that is essentially the male equivalent of, calling someone medium ugly. I don't know, because I don't have that much experience being behind enemy lines, observing shady men in their natural habitat, which I assume is a Hooters. If you are, one of the menfolk, and you are aware of such a phrase, please let me know down in the comments. But the idea of dating someone who isn't really your type physically, but hey, they treat you well. Let's be real. They know that their partner can't really do much better. Oh, please. Unethical people have been pulling this strategy from this scoundrel dating playbook for years. It's not a new concept, right? Nor is it gender specific. There will be instances where a woman will use this phrase to describe her new man. It'll be at like a brunch or something, right? Where she's around her girlfriends. Y'all know the drill. Someone mentions that they're, seeing a new guy. And of course, what's the first thing that gets asked? We need to see a pic. Because if you don't give me a visual, my brain is just going to automatically start picturing him as Dr. Doofenshmirtz. He would be so lucky, okay? Doofenshmirtz is really quite the man. Smart, ambitious, good father, tragic backstory, interesting schnoz, And we all know the classic line that comes before she actually whips out a picture. Okay, guys, he doesn't take pictures that well, okay? He doesn't even look like this in real life. Now, sometimes she might describe the guy as medium ugly under these specific circumstances. Maybe because she just wants to use, a memed phrase. Or maybe she doesn't want to seem like she's too into him because she knows her friends are gonna side-eye her and go, really? You think he's cute? Okay. No, I'm sorry. No, he seems like he'd be really sweet. Now, deep down inside, right, the woman in question, she actually does think that this man is fine. She just doesn't want to let her friends know that. She doesn't want to get clowned. At least in these scenarios, this woman doesn't actually think the guy that she's seeing is, secretly busted. She's simply succumbing to peer pressure. I am of the opinion that if you are talking about someone who you purport to like And especially someone you plan on seeing in the future, you can't be talking about them like this behind their back. This would be my premise for my A24 horror short film. We open on like a semi-tiny bedroom and some dumb broad is sitting on her bed, kicking her feet, giggling, reminiscing on the good first date that she had. She's already given her friends the full debrief. She's already thinking like, I wonder what our kids would look like. Should I take his last name? I don't know. She knows it's delusional. She knows it is, okay, but she can't help herself, all right? She's a lover girl. She's thinking, oh, tee-hee, I wonder when he's gonna text me back. Just then the mirror on her wall begins to look distorted. It starts to wobble like waves in the water. And then a portal opens up and she gets to see her potential new man hanging out with his friends. The conversation the men are having goes as follows. I don't know, man. It's like, I like the girl. You know, like, don't get me wrong, but she's not exactly my type. No. Girls like that, they're the best, right? Because they're low maintenance. A baddie? No, it's too expensive. Especially in this economy. Don't I know it. You remember my ex. You're still following her, right? Yeah, of course. I mean, I still check out her IG stories, you know, from time to time. She still looks pretty good. But that's the thing about this new girl, you know? She's nothing like that. She's so simple. She's like a wheat thin or a lukewarm glass of milk. You know, I'm just tired of being in these streets. I just need a girl that's gonna hold me down, you know? Bail me out of jail, if need be, shave the bunions off my feet when I get older. See? It's exactly what I'm talking about. The other girls that you follow on IG and DM constantly, they're not gonna do that. Yeah, you're right. You know what? I'm gonna text her. Then whoosh, the portal disappears, and she's back to looking at her own reflection in the mirror. Ding! She gets a text notification. It's him. The text reads, hey, was just thinking about you. Insert emoji here. Cut to black. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank my agent. Now, in most of these instances where the phrase is being used, the gal in question isn't telling the guy that's what she secretly thinks of him. That's what makes it so shady. That's what makes it so mean. And she can't tell this to his face. Because she knows it's rude. She gotta whisper it secretly to her friends. Or silently repost TikToks that basically like make the same joke. What I don't understand is how the guilt of this doesn't just eat people up. Like, I get it, like, I'm Catholic, so I literally feel guilty about everything. But if this is what I thought about someone that I was going out with, and they were none the wiser, oh my goodness, I'd be tossing and turning in my bed like a roach that's been flung on its back. There are corners of the internet that are predominantly female. Like, you know, you're amongst other ladies. In best case scenario, it can feel like, I don't know, you're at like a slumber party. Like, ooh, I'm sipping a Capri Sun. We're playing like My Scene dress-up games. Or Nintendogs, you know, because girls can be gamers too. You know, one girl ends up confessing that her parents are getting a divorce, and she caused it. You know, like, that's the vibe, an adult version of that. What does an adult sleepover look like nowadays? Like, you just cyberstalk your ex? At its best, that's the vibe. There's inside jokes and references that you get because y'all are both on like that girly wavelength. You know, it's fun. Worst case scenario, these spaces begin to engage in what I like to call catty solidarity, where if one points out that a fellow woman is acting in a manner that is unethical or mean towards a man specifically, or, ooh, God forbid, you sympathize with a man, not even at the expense of women, ooh, you might get pick-me accusations hurled at you like you're playing dodgeball. Okay, you better duck. Pick-me-sha is my personal favorite variation of the phrase. Similar to not like other girls, these two labels turned from critiques of women who were displaying, you know, some sort of internalized misogyny, or who were volunteering eagerly to play defense for unethical men, to now being labels that have lost a lot of their meaning. Like, they're literally just being thrown around. You don't even have to do anything to get this label stuck on your forehead. At this point, I would argue that they're actually just a means by which women can be very hypercritical and such a pedantic level of criticism. But it's fine because it's under the guise of feminism. At a certain point, it's like, just admit that you're sipping on that haterade. Don't try and hide behind this like pseudo-progressive language. I'd say the catty solidarity is rooted in a sisterhood of exhaustion. These women have been played by the mandem, and they're tired. Girl, look, I've listened to SZA's music too. I mean, 3 songs in, and a cigarette just manifests in your hand, and you're transported to a balcony. You're wearing a muumuu, thinking about how a man did you wrong. I'm cosplaying getting cheated on. I get it. I can understand the frustration from having been done dirty in the past. So if you enter these spaces and you suggest that maybe their attitude towards men and dating generally is not very healthy, you usually get hit with something along the lines of, girl, why are you even defending them? You know they wouldn't do the same for you. Oh, you want to criticize us calling them medium ugly, but like you're acting like men don't do the same exact thing that we're doing. If anything, we're doing it in response to them. That's the kind of pushback that you start to get. And listen, you don't think I'm aware of the scoundrel epidemic? Okay, I'm not naive. The thing is, I don't want to hold myself to that low standard. I don't want to match their pettiness. I don't want to beat them at their own game or play them like they played me. You win nothing by participating in the bitter Olympics. I'm shooting myself in the toe if that's what it takes to get honorably discharged from the gender wars. Now, there are people who wouldn't consider being seen as medium ugly by their partner as a deal breaker. I don't get that personally, but listen, it's not my life. Some people legit would not be hurt by that. And if the other party discloses that's how they feel about you, I don't know how that conversation would go, but if they tell you this early on, well, you can't say that they were misleading you. Fellas, how would y'all feel if your gal disclosed that's actually what you thought about your appearance? Would you stay? I know some of you would. Later on that day, would you stare out into the void while taking a shower? Wonder how your life came to this? And this is honestly a question for everyone watching this. How would you respond if this is what someone you were dating told you? Just straight up to your face. I think my brain would glitch. And they said this to you and they still wanted to continue dating you, mind you. Like this wasn't part of the breakup speech. One thing I do love about cope phrases is that they're so layered. They're like a tres leches cake or a tiramisu. Because the first layer of medium ugly is just, the shadiness. Because, you're not disclosing the truth to this guy. Not even because you don't think it would be that big of a deal, but precisely because, he's probably gonna be offended by it. Maybe he would end the relationship, and you don't want to risk that. It is quite a selfish decision. The second layer is delusion. Because the implication of calling a guy this is that you could be dating someone hotter if you wanted to. This time you're choosing to date a Joe Schmo, right? You're doing philanthropy, really. It should be a tax write-off. And perhaps the way that someone will justify this to themselves is repeating the classic backhanded lie that, looks don't matter. Or, hot guys just won't treat you right. But maybe dating like a nerdy guy. That's the correct strategy. Oh. Who's gonna tell her? The general advice that I'll hear get, disseminated as if it's some sort of sage piece of wisdom is that you shouldn't go for somebody just because they're hot or they got money. Now, I agree with the underlying sentiment that you can't place looks or wealth above other more meaningful characteristics. But this advice, it does imply that you even have access to those kinds of potential partners. Because if you don't have access to them, how exactly are you gonna reject them or consider other options? It's one thing if you hear someone who is very, desirable saying something like this. It's a person who actually does have the sauce like that. They got skin like butter. They have a magnetism to them where you can't even have silverware around them because them spoons just stick to them like they're Magneto. An individual like that, okay. I can believe them, right? When they say yeah, I'm choosing to not go for the hotties or the richy riches. But let's be real. Most people don't have a choice but to not be shallow. You can't sit there and say yeah, I don't go for just looks alone. Why are you acting like you got 2000's Megan Good on the line? You don't have access to, I don't know, who's another attractive person, 2000's Enrique Iglesias? And I emphasize the 2000s because, what an era for metrosexual men's fashion. They just all look like they smelled good. I kind of miss it. I miss when everyone looked European. Regardless, all right, I'm getting off topic. What I am saying is that we cannot conflate desperation or having limited options with being virtuous. Here's another uncomfortable question. Is the person that you're dating medium ugly, or do they actually kinda look like you? You might be dating a peer. Remember what I said about how cope phrases allow people to not have to acknowledge an uncomfortable truth? And look, it is hard to have to admit to yourself, right, that maybe you just don't have the sauce or, whatever it takes to actually attract the kinds of people that you really desire. And again, I'm not just talking looks-wise. That's a factor, don't get me wrong. Because you'll hear people say oh, I want a partner that has X, Y, and Z. I want them to be intelligent, have proper banter, is an efficient communicator, can do a proper handstand for more than a second. and them knees better not fold. You know, the basic pillars of a good relationship. Meanwhile, they don't even possess any of those characteristics. Now, where the delusion comes in is when said individual refuses to even consider this explanation, and instead they want to frame everyone else as being the problem. So the mindset is basically, well, I'm not gonna be able to get a good quality guy that checks off all these boxes if he's hot, so let me date a guy that's more basic, right? That's the trade-off. Or worse, they won't even acknowledge that the sort of quality partner they have in their mind. And I mean like a real, genuine example of one, not like some fanfic version of a dream guy. That person does not exist. The real question is, would you even be compatible with that kind of person? And this is why online discussions in these spaces where everyone is airing out their grievances, dating-wise, it's like people want to believe that they are the full package, right? And so they're so confused when they can't find someone who's on their level, but it's like, wait, can we be honest here? Are you? And I'm saying this because people have room for growth. I'm not saying this like, I'm so self-actualized. I'm just saying I respect someone who can actually raise their hand and go, you know what? Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I'm not actually on that level yet. Instead of the, well, I'm just overqualified. I'm just too good for this dating scene. Cope. The final third layer of medium ugly is the base. It's the real meat. And it's a classic. Insecurity. At its core, a lot of these ladies just want to be with a guy who thinks of her as being out of his league in the hopes that he'll act accordingly. And I say in the hopes because this isn't necessarily how it's actually gonna play out in real life. The fantasy is that this average Joe is gonna think, oh, gee golly, I sure am lucky that I bagged this beauty that I saw shoplifting at Joann's Fabrics. She's so quirky. I gotta go above and beyond to keep her. Like, they wanna see him do the tap dance. They wanna see him play the jester, making that little hat jingle. I am not trying to say that, oh, you're crazy for, wanting to have a man who adores you. Like, I get it. Sometimes you do want a guy who's a little obsessed with you, or maybe he collects your hair. He's not plucking it out. He's just like picking up the strands that you shed, like a dog. And one day you go over to his place and you see a clump of hairs in the shape of a person. And you ask, what is that? And he responds, oh, it's you. I just wanted a little version of my cupcake to take around with me, put in my pocket. Now you start inching your way towards the door, and he tells you that he's already locked every exit. I understand wanting that type of romance, and I myself have engaged in that sort of behavior. When I tell this guy that we're gonna have the kind of love that people write about, I meant in police reports, not novels. Normally, this kind of dynamic is only healthy when both parties are really into each other. Like, that sort of effort and affection has to be reciprocated. So desiring one-sided adoration, and trust, it's one-sided. Because if you actually liked somebody, you would not be calling them medium ugly, okay? And it's not because I think the only way to gauge whether or not you like a person is being obsessed with the way that they look or thinking that they're super, handsome or beautiful. It's more that, if you genuinely cared about a person, you wouldn't be talking about them like this behind their back. Genuinely liking a person has to be reflected in the way that you consciously think about them and taking into consideration how they'd feel about that, right? Desiring this sort of validation, right, especially the one-sided validation from a third party is usually a sign that someone is insecure. And I'm not saying that wanting affection or to be desired by your man in and of itself makes you insecure. I mean, that's a pretty normal thing to want. It's more that if you're dating someone who you clearly are not even really that into because you want them to fawn over you, that is a sign that you are not able to validate yourself. There isn't that sort of like internal sense of self-worth that you can derive confidence from. Also, there's an aspect of this where the person does not believe that they are worthy or beautiful unless a man co-signs it, even if it's a guy, again, that they're not that into. And it's the idea that the more aggressively he performs this adoration, well, the more worthy he must perceive you as being, which is perfect if you have low self-worth, because now you have this energy source to feed off of. Each, text that's like, good morning, beautiful. And I mean one that's genuine, okay? Not the kinds that guys will like mass send, copy paste. There's never a specific name that's attached, please. He's true to this, not new to this. Like every kind of, compliment or act of service that, that guy is gonna do for you, oh, it's like a hit of 5-hour energy. Enough of them in a row and you're gonna begin to levitate. Sometimes, and I've noticed this with very beautiful women in particular who go down this route, perhaps they've dated a lot of pretty boys. I mean, the real, good jawline havers. The ones that mog you and all your couple selfies. He's got better skin and a smaller waist than you. I mean, could we have anything And they're thinking, you know, if these pretty boys are so trifling, then maybe the mid guy will be more humble, less drama. So this is a dating strategy that's built on the assumption that the average man will be less demanding, which isn't really how people work. Sometimes it's the assumption that, like, you know, if you want a good personality, you have to compromise. Like, okay, maybe you don't find him that attractive, but you know, he's funny, he's got a good personality, and you're not gonna find that in an attractive man, which, see, here's the thing. I do think there is some truth to the notion that if you are very, very conventionally attractive, that maybe you don't have to put as much effort into your personality. I think that, like, the joke is, like, you know, if you're funny or witty, it's a skill that you started to develop once you, like, hit puberty and realized, okay, I'm not that cute, I gotta have something else going for me. I do think there is some truth to that. However, I'll say it, I do think that this is an average looking person's cope. You understand what I mean? Where you want to believe that, like, okay, sure, I might not be one of the hotties, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm not in the penthouse, I'm slumming it in the sub-basement, but everyone here's got good personalities, right? I don't know if there's any studies that have been done on this, to be honest with you, so maybe I'm just talking out of my butt. However, is this necessarily true? I don't know anymore. You know what? This is a better way of phrasing it. Is that assessment of the relationship between looks and personality actually true? Or do people who want to be hotter than they actually are want to believe that that is the truth? Because it makes existence a little less painful. All I'm saying is that sometimes the reason behind this dating strategy is because of that trade-off mindset. But sometimes the trade-off mentality is not even about personality. It's just wanting to finally be the pretty one in the relationship. And there are people who will just come out and say it. That's the truth. So again, the idea is, like, if you're with a guy who thinks that, you know, you're way out of his league, that he's gonna put in more effort. And you know, there is some truth to this. The idea that the wider the attraction gap, the greater the desirability imbalance, let's just say, the more devotion you'll get. So if you are, you know, a broad and you think you're pretty, you're cute, but you're not exactly gorgeous, like, you're not gonna get scouted at the flea market. So according to this worldview, the very conventionally attractive men who are out of your league, on the off chance that they might actually go for you, if anything, they're also employing the same strategy, because they're relegating you to the category of, like, the mid girl, the homely chick, the sentient copy of Little House on the Prairie. You might as well be a CPR dummy who they might date in secret or drag through the modern day nightmare that is a situationship. Or worse, even, potentially settle down with in the future because he thinks that, like, she'll be grateful. She won't be too fussy. She might even, you know, give him a kidney if need be. She's a walking contingency plan. No, you can't have that happening. Because you see the world as you are. So if you're trying to play this shady game, you are, like, painfully aware of the fact that other people are also doing it, and you don't want to become the victim of that, right? So according to the worldview, the super attractive men, that's dangerous, you're playing with fire. But a guy who is as attractive as you, there's not enough of a gap. So the only other option is to date down. So this is a tactic that is really cranked up to the predatory max by, you know, pickup artist type men, the homunculus creatures that crawl out of a copy of Neil Strauss's The Game that somebody dumped Axe body spray onto. These men will give advice, you know, to guys that, like, really desperately just, like, they want to get laid, right? Like, they think of this as a game. You know, they'll tell them, like, oh, you gotta go for, like, the ugly chick, or you gotta go for the fat chick. Because the basic strategy is you gotta go for a person who you think is insecure and then exploit that. Because then they'll be an easier conquest. I don't believe that the women I'm discussing fall on that end of the predatory spectrum. However, I do think that there is overlap in the sense that both are, let's just say, tapping into another person's insecurity for their own personal gain. And sometimes you'll hear a girl saying something along the lines of, you know, I just like medium ugly guys, and, like, I don't know, that's just, like, my type, I don't know why. But as I have explained thoroughly in this video, if you dig a little deeper, you kinda know why. And I don't think a lot of these people want to acknowledge the underlying shadiness and insecurity that is actually at the heart of this preference. Jokes and memes surrounding dating and love, they reveal a lot more than any answer that you would get from a straightforward question. When people analyze modern dating, there is a focus on the more toxic aspects, you know, of the gender war discourse. There isn't as much focus on the seemingly innocuous acts of selfishness, really, that are way more common, which means that they're more likely to negatively impact people's dating lives. The lack of consideration for the other party that is at the heart of the medium ugly phrase is a perfect example of this. That's the worst component of this phrase. It's not necessarily you not thinking that your, man is the most handsome man you've ever seen on earth. Like, I get that there are guys that don't care, right? Like, they wouldn't necessarily mind being seen as kind of average looking by their woman. That's not really the point. The worst aspect of this phrase is it's the self-centered approach of, as long as I'm getting what I want out of a person, I'm not even gonna consider what it is that they need or if something like this is a deal breaker, if that makes any sense. Because the average person's approach to dating is not, to emulate Andrew Tate or to have the, secure the bag at any expense sort of philosophy. So it's easy to critique those extremes because most people, at most, they might see some overlap in their behavior, right, with the people that preach that very blatantly transactional, sort of hypergamous attitude towards dating. But the thing is that a lot of the perpetually online individuals that are really seeped in those spaces, especially if we're talking about the really obsequious sort of Andrew Tate fanboys. I mean, emphasis on the boys, by the way, because a lot of them are not even men. They're not adults that are in the dating space. They are children who clearly need some sort of, strong father figure, so they've latched onto the Tate brothers. Most of them, they're not even participants in the dating scene. They're 13. And a lot of the other men that have really bought into that philosophy, how many of them are actually dating? I'm not saying it's zero. I'm just saying, I don't think that, the red pill or, the pink pill, I guess that's what, the female hypergamy gurus are calling it. I don't think that those people are the majority of the dating pool. The most vocal proponents of these philosophies just love yapping on the internet. It's the smaller unethical acts that get dismissed as not even being that deep. Those are the kinds of behaviors that make navigating the dating scene more tricky. It makes it difficult to trust others. It allows people to mask their real desires behind a joke. And worse, it forces people to co-sign this kind of behavior lest, you break girl or bro code. So yeah, I do think it is that deep. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on this? I don't know, this phrase, it's been irking me. As always, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know every time that I upload. What are your thoughts on this? I think this might be my last video on anything gender war related because it's getting a little tired. Next video, I'm gonna be talking about YouTube pranks. Do you remember when someone would pretend to be on bath salts and they would go to the hood and start barking at black people? Man, we really need to bring that back. But yeah, I'm gonna do another one of these retrospectives because I think it'll be fun and I wanna abuse my green screen. Maybe I'll talk about Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop. Gwyneth, if you're watching, and I know that you are, hit me up. I'll sell your weird candles. As always, thank you for watching. Shout out to my top patrons! If you are not aware, I made an announcement on my community tab and also on my Patreon that I won't be uploading new content on there for a hot minute. If you want to support me, you can still support your girl. I will be, very indebted to you. I will be very grateful for that. However, for top tier patrons, I will be giving out some free merch. All right, I'm gonna put them on screen. They're gonna be stickers. All right, they're very cute. They're all original designs. Okay, they're a little bit big, but they've all come in. So if you are a top tier patron, then you will get this as free complimentary merch. Okay, this is the first time I'm rolling out any sort of merchandise, and I'm a little excited. Thank you to my top patrons. Your name should be featured on screen. If you'd like to donate to my Patreon, please click on the link in the description or on screen. Thank you to my channel members. Your name should be on screen as well. Shout out to my other lovely patrons. Your name should be scrolling on screen as I speak. Bye.